Hello everyone. It is a pretty nice day out, however, I'm quite an introvert, so I enjoy staying inside with all my stuff, but I have some streetlights that need some videos done, and I would like to actually do a video today about the streetlight I have here in my closet that I've had for quite a long time now, and I really think it's time to do a video about. So let me get this streetlight out, make a space for it, and let's go over it. Okay, I am all set up, and let's go ahead and get into it. So, usually I would start off with a streetlight fixture laying on its side, pretty much on the floor, but this streetlight has a very odd shape, and setting it on its side really would be a good way to show it off. So, to explain, this is a Joslyn MV121. This is a 250 watt Mercury vapor fixture, and this is referred to as a spaceship, Joslyn spaceship, because, like I was just saying, it does not lay very flat because it is very flat. As you can see, when I turn it to the side here, it's very flat, but then when I turn it back forward, it's pretty wide. I don't know why Joslyn did this with their design, but these streetlights are pretty cool, and they are pretty high quality in relation to the internals that are in this light. But for the most part, the rest of the fixture is pretty average. So first off, I will give you guys a little information about this fixture. So right around, I'd say the early 60s, Joslyn started coming out with Cobra head style fixtures, because at that time, Cobra head style fixtures were really starting to become a thing, and remote ballasted fixtures, kind of like the one I have off to the right here, were kind of starting to be phased out in favor of the internal ballasted lights that were starting to come out. And Joslyn made a lot of incandescent style lights and Mercury vapor remote ballasted fixtures too. But this, I would say, is probably one of the first Cobra head style fixtures they made in their line. Now there's another one called the MV121, and that is a higher wattage fixture that actually utilizes the same top housing that this one utilizes. However, the door is different. It is, the reflector inside is much bigger, and the door actually is able to hold a bigger refractor that can line up with that. But pretty much, the MV121 is very similar to that light, and these did come with photocell sockets equipped. However, this one I have does not have that, and they are extremely rare and hard to find with photocell sockets. I do know a friend who has an MV141 that has a photocell socket on it, and I actually have seen these MV121s with photocell sockets. I actually saw them in a small town a couple years back, but they have unfortunately been replaced with LED fixtures and are probably long gone at this point. However, I'd say if anyone does happen to see one of these, I definitely get its location pinned down so people can try to go after them and save them, because the photocell versions of these are very rare. But not to get too off topic, these fixtures were made in 175, 250 as I have here in Mercury Vapor, and I'm sure they were probably also made in 100 watts Mercury Vapor as well. But this fixture is really cool. In terms of the housing, as you can see for the shape here, the profile on the side here is very flat, and it actually looks kind of like a generic fixture. Now, when I first saw this fixture in service, I actually thought that this was a General Electric fixture, but when I finally looked at the underside and I noticed how wide it was, I realized that this was not a General Electric fixture, and I actually had no clue who made this fixture until I did some research. Now, I've seen a lot of these. This one actually has its original lens, but there are plenty of these that don't have its original lens. Some of these I think came with GE lenses, and I have seen some collectors that have plastic lenses in these as well, which you don't want to have because those will yellow due to the UV light from the mercury lamps. So having the original lens in this is also really nice. It's pretty hard to find. There's not really too much going on, but let's go ahead and kind of just go over the fixture now and really take a closer look at it. So even though it has a very odd profile, this is still made of aluminum. but this is made differently than other streetlights. So most streetlights are cast aluminum. However, Joslyn made these with pressed aluminum. So basically, a machine pressed down a sheet of metal into a mold plate, and then pretty much just from there they press the metal into that shape. So unfortunately, one thing that you'll find with stuff like this is these will dent very easily. I actually have a little dent right there, as you can see, and they are more prone to scuffing. But as long as this fixture stays nice and no harm is done to it, these fixtures actually are pretty good. At least if this was in an accident, the fixture actually wouldn't crack or break. Now, cast aluminum, when it's hit by a car, I've seen that they crack and bust, but something like this would just dent, and the components inside would still stay safe. However, of course, you would still lose your glass lens, I guess, unless you had a plastic one. But anyway, that's really the only flaw, but it is pretty unique, as pretty much every other streetlight manufacturer didn't do this. But you'll see more of that pressed aluminum look actually on the inside. But as for the pressed aluminum, overall, the aluminum material they made is pretty good in quality. I don't really see any real problems with it, other than it just, being maybe a little bit more prone to scratching. But yeah, back here there's actually a flat spot here. This would be where your photocell socket would be, but of course, I don't have, this light isn't photocell socket equipped, so unfortunately, this isn't on here. But if they were to press this, there would be also a press mold as well that would have a, a lifted spot where the photocell socket would go. And even though I don't have a photocell socket equipped on this light, I can show you what the Joslyn photocell sockets for these looked like with another fixture I actually have. I went ahead and got my gumball Joslyn fixture out here. I'll take the photocell off here and show you. This one isn't in perfect shape, but as you can see, basically what it is just a ceramic socket, and it pretty much just it's crimped into this metal piece here, and pretty much like the GE sockets of the time, you just undo these two screws and then you actually can twist and turn the photocell socket, and as you can see, it is pretty flat too. So these are pretty basic photocell sockets, but this is actually the same exact photocell socket that you would find on this fixture as well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and open up the fixture now and see what the inside has to offer. Now, one thing I'll actually point out, and I'll get back to this in a minute, but I believe there are different, depending on what wattage this fixture is as well, you will get a slightly different lens. Joslyn actually, for the MV121, has two different variant lenses, but they're actually the same shape. And this does as well. There's actually a rounded Joslyn lens that actually looks very similar to the GE M250 shallow lens. But I won't get too much into that, but I do believe that depending on what lens is actually on this light, actually says what wattage it is. Because all the 250 watt versions of these that are actually up here in Detroit still actually have this lens. And the 175 versions that I have occasionally seen have a GE style looking lens, but it's still made by Joslyn. Hopefully I can get one of those in my collection someday so I can do a little bit more researching and understanding, but I have yet to get one at this time. So anyway, go ahead and open the fixture up. There's a little button you just press right here and it basically releases. Sometimes that button can be a little chintzy if your light's kind of bent up. But you press that, and then your door just pretty much comes open like every other streetlight. And to get the door off, you gotta push it up. Now this is kind of clicked in, so you kind of press it really hard sometimes. Sometimes I'll just kind of bang it like that, and then your door will come all the way off right there. And this Joslyn, luckily, is in very, very, very good condition on the inside. So that means that this fixture definitely works. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at the components. Here are all the components. This little thing right here, this little hinge that your refractor door stays on, is actually screwed in here. You can see there's two little screws, and then on the inside it actually screws on to the mounting hardware for this. Now, one thing that Joslyn did with their fixtures, and I really love this, this whole unit can actually come off, and off the actual like top housing. There's really just a couple screws you got to take off. There's one screw here. It's just really held on by this bracket screwed onto this, and then there's a washer under here, or like a nut that keeps it on. And there's another one over here as well. It's kind of hiding actually behind the transformer here. And then of course you got your two screws down here, which not only hold the hinge on, but also hold on the entire assembly as well. And this is actually something I want to demonstrate right now on video. I'm actually going to go ahead right now and unscrew the entire assembly and just show you how easily it comes out and actually why I like this. So let me get a screwdriver real quick and I'm going to unscrew that. Alright, I got a screwdriver here. Let's go ahead and I'm going to show you this right now on camera. Let's go ahead and unscrew everything. So like I said, there's a screw that holds this thing is just kind of a floater support to keep it on. We'll go ahead and unscrew that. Here we go. You see that's one screw right there. You got two screws on the back. There you go. That's just a screw. There's no washer because the bracket hardware has threads in it. I'll grab that other screw out. Now I've come across a couple of these Joslyns where there's so much corrosion that these will shear off. So if you guys get this Streetlight and attempt to take these out, be very careful because these screws are very prone to shearing off. Luckily this one's in good condition. My friend who actually has the photocell version, his actually was in very bad shape. His had a lot of corrosion, and every screw I tried to take out, even when I was trying to unscrew the ballast and stuff, everything sheared off, so I had to replace every little screw in it. But he actually did a video about it too, and I'll put a link to his channel. He actually collects streetlights as well, and to that video as well, and you guys can actually learn about the MV121 if you guys are interested in seeing that after I show you the 121 here. Anyway, here's the screw and your washer. Actually, I got another washer here. But basically, now that those screws are out, actually I'm going to screw the light bulb. And another thing you want to do actually is take out the reflector, and I will show you that again on camera when we actually get, hope you can see it's already coming off, we actually get to that, but go ahead and take that off. But you can see this pretty much was just pressed in on the back here with those two little things. But you can just see, just look at this. This whole unit just comes out perfectly. And now you can just see that this whole entire thing is just open now. Just look. There's nothing left. So let me go ahead and move that. I can show you. You can see, just look at this separate assembly here. So one thing that Joslyn did is they made their bracket, the bracket or whatever you want to call this entire thing to put all their mount all their components and parts on, comes completely out of the fixture. And what's really cool, the slip fitter is actually on it too. You can see the slip fitter clips and bolts are on it as well. What's really nice about this feature right here is you can take the housing, you can get all the housing and stuff out of the way, and you can have this cleaner area to work with. So if you ever wanted to convert these, which I wouldn't because I definitely want to leave this original, if you were ever to convert anything in here, replace any parts, like the capacitor, the transformer, it's very easy to do it now because you actually got this whole entire assembly out of here. I'm sure these were easier to mass produce like this, especially since they were already pressing the metal. That was probably an easy, cheap way to mass produce these. And you can see too, if you ever had to put an extra transformer, you know, you got a little space for your coils there, and you got openings everywhere around the bottom part of this so your wires can go up. And yeah, overall, I really like this. Now, some people might think that this is kind of just cheap. I don't think this is cheap at all. I think this really makes... now, this is cast aluminum, all this, by the way. The whole, you know, mounting thing. But I like this a lot because if I ever had to fix anything, I can do it outside the fixture without scratching up the housings or doing any damage, and test it as well. And actually, a funny thing, too, is if with the housings being pressed aluminum, they can rip off pretty easily. So one thing you could actually do is make this into a skeleton streetlight fixture and just mount this right onto an arm without having any housing on it whatsoever. So that would be pretty odd, and I don't recommend doing that, but just kind of a funny thought. But yeah, maintenancing and repairing and replacing equipment in this fixture is very easy to do with this assembly being able to come completely out. And this is one of my favorite things about the Joslyn MV121 and the MV141 as well, since, like I said, the top housing's the same. So if that's the same, this is the same as well. And really the only difference that you're going to get with the kit that's already installed in it is basically just 400 watt components. So that was definitely an awesome design plan. I give big kudos to whoever came up with this. It's too bad streetlights weren't made kind of in this way continuing on, but I definitely like this design feature where you can just take the assembly out. Definitely a 10 out of 10 part of the feature on the streetlight. But now that we have this out, we actually can go over the components too, maybe a little bit easier. So, and since we have this thing out, let's go ahead and actually go over the components as well. So this being Mercury Vapor, all you really need is a transformer and a capacitor. This is a 120/240 hookup light. So it is multi-tap, but it's only it can only do 2 taps, really. A lot of streetlights up here in Detroit were ordered like that, but other cities were like that too back in the day. I have this wired for 120 because I want to be able to plug it in inside my room and stuff. So yeah, but these components here, and this is something I noticed about Joslyn lights, these components are actually made by Jefferson. Now I can show you actually on the side here what the tag says on the transformer, but Jefferson, from what I heard, has made very high quality ballasting equipment for streetlights back then. But you can see here, you can see right there it says Jefferson Electric Company. You can see it says Mercury ballast. There's a few numbers here and there, but it actually says line volts 115 to 230. That's not entirely true. You can hook it up for 240, but it says 250 watt lamp. And yeah, so Jefferson back when they made these streetlights, they used Jefferson Electric ballasting components. And like I said, I heard these are very high quality components. The transformer, I think, is actually fairly quiet for its age. This light did come out in the 60s. Now, a lot of 240 volt only stuff was pretty quiet back then too, and still kind of is to this day. However, for something like this that can run on 120, I think this is actually a fairly quiet light, but we won't really know actually until we start this up. Another thing I noticed too, and this is something that happens unfortunately with a lot of older streetlights, and newer streetlights suffer this too, but a lot of the old PVC oil capacitors, a lot of them fail, and how they fail compared to the new capacitors is they fail to a short. So basically they will still work, but they will be pulling in way too much current, which will actually heat the transformer up and essentially burn it up, which is very bad. And a lot of streetlights back then, until around the 70s, did that. That's actually why you don't see a lot of streetlights even to this day as of 2021 from the 60s, because a lot of the 121s that existed back then had those capacitors and tons of them failed. So whether those capacitors were cheap or not, which I heard they were very good, but when they were used for, they definitely had short lives. But the point I was going to try to make here actually is one thing I noticed about these Joslyn lights, especially these Jefferson capacitors, is they seem to still work really well. A lot of them will dim out and start to burn the transformers up and short out. But from what I've seen, and if you guys check out that other video, you'll see in the video there's a couple of these I've gotten that have actually started leaking, and they still work extremely well for some reason. So the Jefferson capacitors and transformers are just so high quality to this day, so I don't know why they still work well, but that's definitely one thing I want to point out. So it's nice to see that this Joslyn has an original capacitor in it, because a lot of the original ones don't exist in lights. Collectors usually replace them because they go bad. But yep, basically your mercury vapor setup, your transformer and capacitor, and your slip fitter, like I said, is already pre-casted into this. So all you got here are your bolts, and there's a lot of aluminum on these. These shear off pretty well too, so also be careful. See, that's one thing that's actually a problem. There's just so much cast aluminum in spots that a lot of the stuff, unfortunately, on the streetlight, when it gets corrosion, will get stuck. So just one thing to keep in mind. A lot of older streetlights don't get like that unless they're down south or something, but that is something that this light is extremely prone to. Yeah, these are your slip fitters. The slip fitter is actually pretty small, so you can't really put these on a lot of newer mast arms, as this won't really fit. But yeah, your power comes in at the top here on this socket terminal. This is a ceramic terminal, and a lot of companies were actually straying away from these and started using backlight terminals, but Joslyn decided to keep their ceramic terminals, which honestly are much higher quality, so glad to see that. I think your line comes in on this side, and then all your power goes down your transformer and stuff, and then your neutral is on this side as well. All your mercury vapor stuff happens, and then basically your two wires coming from your cap and then your transformer go up into the socket here. We'll go ahead now and flip this, and let's go ahead and look at the socket. As you can see, there is a little room for adjustment, but there's no up and down movement really. You can only set it up one more set of screws, and all you really can do actually to adjust it is just adjust this screw right here, which I actually haven't even adjusted yet. But since I have a screwdriver out, I'll go ahead and do it on camera. Basically, you can just kind of shift it forward, or you can shift it back. There's an A, B, and C position. I'll go ahead and just put it back to B. I am pretty much okay with the position that it's in. I'm not usually a huge fan of adjusting the streetlight, but if you want to adjust your light output, you can by doing that. And the socket here is, I think, just, I don't actually know what the brand socket is, but it's just a ceramic socket. And then you got your seal right here for the, where the reflector sits. So now that we've seen that, actually, let's go ahead and put this back in the light fixture, and we can take a look at the reflector. Alright, the reflector is pretty much like every other streetlight reflector. It's also a pressed aluminum. This one's pretty nice and clean and has a pretty standard design on it. The rubber gasket, some of these have the old white ones that'll pretty much just chip off and break, but luckily mine, I actually have this nice black one here, and you can see it's all in good shape and flexible. And a lot of those black gaskets are actually much better quality, so I'm glad that mine has a gasket, its original gasket, and has the original high quality one. It does stretch a little bit though, as you can see. There's a little bit more overlapping right there than there needs to be, but that's no big deal. Yeah, pretty much just a basic reflector here. And it's actually kind of like the Westinghouse fixtures too. your reflector here, when you put it back in your fixture, I'll show you right now. You slide it in there, and that little tab on the front right here, where you can kind of see I'm pointing. There we go. You gotta put it in sideways. Pretty much just clips into the slot. That is right on the front. If I can get it, there we go. And this little slot right here, this is the front slot piece, as well as the hook where your door, where the door hinge closes. This is actually riveted in. A lot of these and other streetlights are just screwed in, but since this is a pressed aluminum housing, it has to be riveted in to the fixture. So it's pretty small, actually, pretty small piece of metal that they got right there. I am assuming since Joslyn pressed all their streetlights, that probably saved them a lot of money and time. Thus, they were able to get higher quality components, like the Jefferson Electric components in these streetlights. So yeah, let's go ahead now, and that we've looked at this, and actually look at the door. So like the housing, of course, this is a pressed aluminum metal. The hinge on the back is pretty much just a hooked metal, and you can see there's also rivets. There's also rivets holding this in as well. Go ahead now and go kind of towards the front. You can see the door hook here. Basically just press up on that, and then of course there's some springs loaded in here, and this top part will just clip onto that hook onto the top housing. And then you got another rivet right here that keeps that clip on, and then you got this thing, which actually is kind of cool. This right here is actually a screw, and oops, and there's actually a little washer on top. You can see that washer, and there's a spring that keeps it down. If you want to unscrew that to make this looser, you can, but this is pretty thin, so as you can see, I was easily able to turn that. But you turn that, and pretty much your refractor just comes out. Alright, so as you can see, this is a pretty nice Joslyn lens. It actually is high quality glass. It's a nice, clean, clear mold. It feels good. The finish is smooth. There's no rough edges anywhere, and I do appreciate the pattern on the lens here. Now, one thing you'll notice actually about this lens is it looks just like the Cooper OVZ plastic lens that they use nowadays on their fixtures, and I don't know if Cooper actually took the design from Joslyn or got like the rights to it, but this is very, very similar. Now, it is not the same, however. The Cooper OVZ lens is actually much deeper than this. And actually, I'll show you right now. You can see the design is obviously different on it as well. There's much more smaller bead patterns. So it is not exactly the same, but it is very alike. So yeah, pretty cool. There's not a lot going on. There is no logo on this, unfortunately, saying Joslyn. But it does say two-way on the front, which is really nice, and I'm assuming there were three-way versions of these as well. The three-way versions of these lenses actually might be the round one that I was talking about. Now, I think with some of the 175 versions, they use a round lens, which, like I said, looks very similar to the GE shallow lens that goes on the M250s. However, it is made by Joslyn, and I think that one actually has... it actually kind of, I think, does say something on it. But I thought that lens was for the 175 versions, but now that I'm thinking about it, it may be a three-way lens. But who knows? I hope to get one in the future, and maybe if I do, I'll do a comparison. But that variant lens is pretty interesting. But like I said, there is no Joslyn logo on this, unfortunately, but it does say Joslyn on it. As you can see right here, it says Pyrex. And then you got some codes on it, and you can see it says Made in USA. And if we flip it over here, you can see it says Joslyn. So it's definitely a Joslyn lens, but this lens is made by Pyrex. Now, Pyrex definitely Now Pyrex wasn't the only company that made lenses for Joslyn. Holophane actually made lenses for Joslyn too. Pyrex actually has a MV121 variant that really doesn't have any detailing on the inside, but that does have detailing on the outside. And the Holophane version has that outside detailing but has different ones on the inside. So I don't know if that other one as well, that more rounded one, is a Holophane lens, but I do know that this one is made by Pyrex, and Pyrex is actually a really good company. They actually make glass stuff. They make like plates and stuff, and I know they still make stuff to this day. My sister actually was using one the other day. She has a brand new plate made by Pyrex, and yeah, Pyrex is pretty much a high quality glass company, so I'm assuming that, you know, Joslyn wanted high quality, and they got Pyrex to do it for them. So, yep, a very good lens. I do like it a lot. But now that we've seen the lens, let's go ahead and put that back in the door and get that light back together so we can actually see the light warm up. Okay, so right here I actually have a brand new 250 watt Sylvania bulb here. There we go. The camera wasn't focusing, but now it is. So this brand new Sylvania bulb. I think this is a new old stock bulb. A collector actually gave me this bulb. Kudos to him. Let's go ahead and put it in. I imagine back then that they actually had some clear ones in these, which would be really unique to see. Anyway, let's go ahead now and wire this streetlight fixture up so we can watch it turn on. So let's go ahead now and get this room somewhat dark so we can turn it on. If I had a photocell, I would kind of just close everything and have it plugged in, but that is not the case here. Go ahead and put these ones. Get a little darker in here. I'll go ahead and shut that off. Alright. So my curtains are swaying a kind of a little bit, but we'll stop soon, and we'll go ahead and get it. I don't currently have good cords at the moment, so I gotta use some silly adapter plug right now. It barely plugs in. Here we go. Alright, now I'm all ready to go. Let's go ahead and turn this light on. So this is the 1960s Joslyn MV121 spaceship, 250 watts mercury vapor, in 1, 2, 3. Even with that bulb being pretty new, it did start up pretty well on a cold start, so pretty fast too. So it definitely goes to show the components are pretty good. Usually a bad capacitor will it'll struggle to start up, but I'd say that started up really well. Of course, it's not clear mercury, so it's very pinkish when it starts up because of the phosphor, but it's pretty nice nonetheless. So it's not humming too loudly. It is actually a fairly quiet light, like I had mentioned, for 250 watts mercury vapor and for the age that it is. So I'm very happy to see that it's pretty quiet. I bet if I actually put a new fresh capacitor though in it, it would work. But enough talking, let's go ahead now and just watch it warm up. Alrighty, we are now at full brightness. It actually started up fairly fast. I don't know if that's the good components or the good light bulb, but I'd say a little bit of both worlds are involved in the fast startup here, so it didn't take too long. It is pretty bright. 250 watts mercury vapor, I'd say, is very similar to a 150 watt HPS, because HPS is definitely a little bit brighter in light output. But I still appreciate mercury vapor for its simplicity and the color rendering. Now, it is pretty bright actually, so I can't look at it. And I would say actually, for the age of the capacitor, the light is still fairly bright. I'll go ahead and open it real quick. You can actually hear it. It's not the loudest thing actually in the world. It is fairly quiet, which is really nice. A lot of older Mercury lamps are not this quiet, even if they're running at 175. So anyway, yeah, let me go ahead. Actually, one thing that's funny enough, like I said, it looks like a Cooper light. It actually looks like I'm looking at the bottom on the camera because you can see nothing else. It actually looks like a Cooper OVZ right now, but it's not. It's a Joslyn. Let's go ahead now and pick it up here. Ooh, you can see it's pretty bright. It actually looks like daylight in here. Let's go ahead and position that camera. You can see that nice you can see that really nice two-way effect, and overall, yeah, you can really see the nice bead pattern that is on here. I really like this Streetlight. So yeah, pretty nice. I'm very happy with this light. So let me go ahead now and actually unplug it. Oh yes. Alright, so that was the Joslyn MV121. This is a very interesting fixture for its aluminum pressed design. And even though it's definitely not the highest quality light in terms of body and shape, the inside components, I'd say, are definitely the best part of this light, as well as its unique lens here that goes with it. These lenses are very rare and hard to find alongside the photocell versions of these lights. I really feel like the Joslyn MV line is very underrated, and I don't actually think a lot of people know that these lights exist. There are a few different light brands from back then that actually have kind of faded into obscurity, and I'd say Joslyn is kind of one of those brands where you don't really hear many people mentioning these lights and their opinions. I think this light is definitely very interesting. Now, even though this isn't the highest quality, I think the overall spaceship design is very interesting, and I really do appreciate that look. And I also appreciate, with that aesthetic feature, the components inside this light too being as high quality as they are. So I really think these lights deserve much more attention. If any of you collectors out there happen to come across one, especially one with a photocell socket equipped on it, I would definitely try to save those, since those photocell versions are very rare and hard to find. As of right now, I don't know anyone that owns an MV121 with a photocell socket. However, I have seen them in person, so yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. So again, I thank you guys for watching, and if you see any Joslyns, please save them. Be safe collecting and have fun. Goodbye.